start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
To do the vibes.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be doing the show today because there's a lot of news to talk about, not the least of which is the Donald Trump love affair with Putin and Russia and all things China. Arguably, one of the, I guess, satiating or balancing aspects of what's going on with the top of the Republican ticket has been that the idea that the addition of Mike Pence somehow will act as a counterbalance to the nutty, grasping at straws, flailing about that is the policy positions and concepts and presentation of Donald Trump. That all came crashing to a halt, I guess, in the last 24 hours. And essentially, the reason is that, well, let me just play you some of the audio that got Trump in a bit of trouble and kind of outed him as a sort of Putin sycophant. And this is the increasingly, and this is what happens when Donald Trump, by the way, gets called out on something. He doubles down on it because the idea is that if you don't back down from something, the prevailing idea is that that's what proves you're right, because at least there's an element of bullheadishness must be based on something. And if your prevailing followers, your main line of voters are ignorant, or at least the core essence of those, what Hillary referred to as the basket of deplorables, if what they really appreciate in you is strength is reflected in the fact that you are not going to back down from a position, even when presented with alternate information, even when challenged on it. So this is sort of a hodgepodge of the clinging to the breast of Putin that Donald Trump has been doing.
I think I would have a very, very good relationship with Putin, and I think I would have a very, very good relationship with Russia. If he says great things about me, I'm going to say great things about him. I've already said he is really very much of a leader.
U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies reportedly are investigating whether Russia launched a covert operation to disrupt the 2016 election. What do you make of that?
I've been hearing about it. I've been reading about it. I think it's probably unlikely. I think maybe the Democrats are putting that out. Sure. Who knows? But I think that it's pretty unlikely. If they are doing something, I hope that somebody's going to be able to find out so they can end it, because that would not be appropriate at all.
I would treat Vladimir Putin firmly, but there's nothing I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly as opposed to the way they are right now, so that we can go and knock out ISIS together with other people and with other countries. Wouldn't it be nice if we actually got along with people? As far as Putin is concerned, I think Putin's been a very strong leader for Russia, but he's been a lot stronger than our leader, that I can tell you. I mean, for Russia, that doesn't mean I'm endorsing Putin. Strong doesn't mean good. Putin is a strong leader, absolutely.
He is a very flamboyant man, very talented, no doubt about that. He is an absolute leader of the presidential race, as we see it today.
Yeah, it was very nice. He said great things. He even called me brilliant. Isn't that nice?
You said that was an honor, but Donald.
Of course it's an honor.
Russia
Look, I think it's an honor. I'm not talking about, hey, I compliment people sometimes, and maybe sometimes you don't mean it, but I think he meant it. I would get along with Putin. I've dealt with Russia.
You think you'd get along with Putin?
I think I'd get along with him fine. I think he'd be absolutely fine. He would never keep somebody like Snowden in Russia. If I'm president, Putin says, hey, boom, you're gone. And I would get along with Russia. And I'll get along with Putin. And he's not going to make us look bad anymore. But we're going to get along. He will respect us. That's what we want. Putin called him brilliant. That's not good. Well, isn't it sort of nice if, like, countries that we're always fighting with, maybe we get along?
Okay, let's be abundantly clear, too, that That Vladimir Putin, beg your pardon, that's some of the intro music to Donald Trump walking on stage. That Vladimir Putin, it reportedly orders the death of reporters and orders the death of political rivals. He jails his political rivals, and everyone will probably remember the all-female punk band. I'm not quite sure if I can say their name on the radio, but you can look it up on your own. That were effectively jailed for being pro-LGBT. Now, it's not surprising that if somebody like Putin, who is already running a country, praises in even the most remote way, and that was the debate this week, was the fact that when he called him brilliant, he meant brilliant as in display, not in thought, and that's where the word, it better translates to flamboyant than brilliant in terms of thought process and intellect. But it's not surprising that in running to be president of the United States, Donald Trump clamors at the attention of somebody that his followers, especially the basket of deplorables that Hillary referred to, look up to. There's a reason why Putin is a particularly, what's the word I'm looking for? He's an aspirational leader for a group of these people, largely because he runs what is in effect a white country and has run it as such. And there's an element of wishful thinking in that. And in answer to our chat, yes, that's exactly what I mean. But I'm not sure I could say it on the radio. Yeah, I could say P riot. That is true. In using the old, Prince way of shortening that word. Understand that when Putin says he's a strong leader, he's shrugging off murder and the jailing of political rivals and artists and LGBT activists, and he views that as strength. Period. It's strong. Even if it's wrong, it's strong, and there's something good about just strength in that respect. Understand that's what he's saying. The Livchenko murder a few years ago, the former KGB spy who was poisoned with radioactive chemicals, made a big story that was, and he 2 weeks before his death, as he deteriorated, I think over the course of 30 days, hair falling out, body failing, bones basically turning to plaster, saying this is Putin's handiwork. Putin killed me. Again, still saying that this is strong. Now that's not surprising coming from Donald Trump, not really, because he doesn't think past the sort of veneer of the show aspect of it. He's never been on a show with a plot. He's always engaged in reality television that prides itself on turning human beings into two-dimensional characters, that everything is just a show. It's all manufactured. And therefore, when he looks at someone like Putin, he doesn't see a world leader who is in many ways is involved up to his eyeballs with Assad and Iran, and has loose nukes all over its southern border, and a myriad of very complex political and international issues going on, both with it and its relationship with its neighbors. He doesn't see that. He sees another cast member who plays a certain role, who's getting a lot of attention. When most of us look at Putin, we see a very dangerous former KGB, FSB operative who has very dictatorial designs on how he operates his government, is very comfortable with murder as a tool of political gain. And when Donald Trump sees him, he sees him as David Caruso on CSI. I don't care how he treats the crew. I think it's cool when he takes his sunglasses off. That's pretty much the breakdown. And now that again, that's not surprising. What's surprising is Mike Pence backing him up on it. This is Mike Pence on CNN.
Personally
with
think that
people on the
Vladimir
world
Putin
stage.
is a stronger leader than the current president.
I think it's inarguable that Vladimir Putin has been a stronger leader in his country than Barack Obama has been in this country. And that's going to change the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America. I mean, look.
That's going to change the day that Donald Trump becomes. So I'm guessing what Mike Pence is saying, and I'm being slightly sarcastic here, but not really. Is Pence basically making the case that the day Donald Trump is in office, it's open season on whistleblowers and reporters, that extrajudicial jailing of activists and the murder of journalists and your political enemies will become the norm? Because if there's any indicator of strength in Putin's rule, that's it. Unless he just means none of that's going to happen. It's just Trump's going to ride around on a horse with his shirt off, which is, of course, reason enough for a lot of people to rescind their vote and support. We'll be back right after this. 773-763-9278 is our number. By the way, actual governing and actual news in terms of the U.S.-Russian relationships happened in the last 12 hours. We'll talk about it when we come back. Hi, chat room. How you guys doing? Yeah, and I agree. Joy Reid was amazing this morning. We'll talk about the Clinton Foundation and the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Good morning, Carl. Morning, everybody. Hold on one second. Flip back over. Oh, I gotta throw a background on here. I'm just against jet black, and it's just not particularly charming. Let's see. That's a little better. A little something, something.
We're just under a minute, and we have 6 callers.
Whoa, all right. Right out of the box. Well, let's jump right to them, and then we'll deal with the Clinton Foundation versus the Donald J. Trump Foundation after the maybe at the top of the hour.
Okay, one of them is wants to talk about that guy that Neil Kaepernick.
Oh, yeah, Kaepernick, yeah.
That football player?
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back. Real quick, we got a bunch of callers on the line, so we're going to get to you guys right away. I want to explain something, though. In the process of this discussion about U.S.-Russian relationships and all of wouldn't it be nice if we got along with Russia? Okay, getting along with Russia has nothing to do with whether we can make strategic alliances over certain issues with them. Obviously, the death stare between Obama and Putin this week did not dissuade John Kerry, for example, and his Russian counterpart, Lavrov, from actually reaching a deal on a ceasefire in Syria on Friday. This is from CNN. The United States and Russia announced a plan Friday to bring about a ceasefire in Syria. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said, "Today we are announcing an arrangement that we think has the capability of sticking, but it's dependent on people's choices," Kerry said in Geneva, Switzerland, appearing alongside Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Kerry said the pact calls for the Syrian government and the opposition to respect a nationwide ceasefire scheduled to take effect at sundown Monday. Secretary of State, he said, said the accord would also prevent Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's air force from flying combat missions anywhere the opposition is present, calling this provision the bedrock of the agreement. He labeled Assad's air force the main driver of civilian casualties and migrant flows. That should put an end to the barrel bombs and an end to the indiscriminate bombing of civilian neighborhoods. In February, a cessation of hostilities negotiated between Kerry and Lavrov fell apart within weeks, and efforts to reach political settlement in the war-torn country have been on the verge of collapse. Airstrikes still went on Saturday, today, which is technically, I guess, yesterday their time, outside the besieged city of Aleppo, with at least 24 people killed, according to the Syrian Observatory of Human Rights. The Syrian Civil Defense, a volunteer search and rescue group, tweeted a dramatic image of airstrike victims and urged restraint. These are the white helmets who are the aid workers trying to operate in there and save lives. Effectively, Kerry and Lavrov said Friday that once the cessation of hostilities holds for 7 days, their countries will begin working on military coordination in an effort to target one-time al-Qaeda's affiliate Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, previously known as the al-Nusra Front. Going after al-Nusra is not a concession to anybody. It is profoundly in the interest of the United States to target al-Qaeda. All this talk back and forth about wouldn't it be great if we got along with Russia and glad-handing and saying that Putin is a strong leader and sort of doing all this puff talk about him had zero effect on a coordinated effort by both of their effective, ours and their State Departments negotiating a ceasefire in Syria. And at no point would a lack of smoke blowing into the rectal cavity of each other actually have, towards our main leaders, have any effect on the actual necessity or worth of a ceasefire for both countries. So, and ultimately, the idea that we need to be strong and negotiate from a position of strength, and we also need to get along, at least on a material sense, with Russia, is exactly what is happening. The same thing is true about our fight with ISIS and our joining with allies in France and Germany and other countries to fight ISIS and coordinating with even elements of Iran to fight ISIS in both the Kurdish regions of Iraq, throughout the southern regions of Iraq, parts of Syria, all those areas. There's an ongoing coordinated. One of the reasons why there's been so many terrorist attacks is because the caliphate, as they like to think of it, has lost so much ground physically in fighting with us and with our allies that they are now referring to themselves as an e-caliphate, meaning that they exist only on the internet, as insofar as the broad reach of how they work. Now, homegrown, domesticated radicals and the like, or radicalized domestics, depending on how they show up in your country, are a major aspect of modern law enforcement and military coordination, but they are by no means indicative of a growing, strengthening ISIS as an army or a force, and no matter how much Donald Trump would like it to be so. Let's take some calls. Lady B, who do we have?
We have Carl from Nashville.
Right on. Hey, Carl, welcome.
Hey, Al. Well,
Mm-hmm.
me, if you may, because maybe I fell asleep like some dumbass Trump supporters in history class.
Mm-hmm.
But correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Russia one of our allies during World War II?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you don't have to kiss the ass of Russia to align them in things that may help your country.
That's right.
That's number one. And speaking of dumbass Trump supporters, I am happy that Hillary Clinton said what she said.
I agree.
Because here's the thing right here. For years, I've always said that Republicans aren't racist, but if you wanted to have a home as a racist person, Republican Party is there for you. I've changed that now. They are significantly a racist party. And where Democrats get into trouble is where they refuse to fight fire with fire.
Right.
You know, you could have someone like Ronald Reagan talk about welfare queens and that type of crap, and nobody ever really called them out on it. And now look at their party and look who's supporting this man. He has no policy plans. They're incoherent at best and idiotic at worst, and somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're following this man, I'm sorry, it appears to me that racists are the ones who hate to be called racist the most. They are a group of racists. And in fact, she didn't go far enough. There's more than 50% of his followers that are racist. And it's about damn
Only
time
because
that
the early people,
out.
only because a lot of the people who might have early on jumped on because of, maybe a xenophobic reflex, but aren't full on ready to, really peel the onion of being racist themselves, left already. They left after, probably somewhere around May, decided they'd had enough.
Yeah.
So what's happened is it boiled down to the final group of Trump supporters. And again, when you all these polls, when they're picking, likely voters and the like, they pick an even amount of Democrats and Republicans, and then wonder why it seems tight as we get closer and closer, because they start narrowing who they're talking to. And they're talking to an increasingly small number of Republicans and an increasingly large number of Democrats that are inclusive of Bernie Sanders supporters and other people, whatever. Whereas when it comes to Trump, they're almost pre-asking, do you support Donald Trump? Cool. Okay, are you going to vote? Yes. Well, when you answer both of those questions, it's going to seem like 50-50 at this point. And her basket of deplorables, one more thing, that basket of deplorables concept that she said, she was actually being mitigatory in that. What she was saying was not all Trump supporters are racist maniacs. There's a big group of them that are worth talking to, that feel like they've been left out in the cold and they deserve a chance to have help too. She was actually saying there's a group of them that are worth talking to. Right.
And you know what? I used to have this same conversation with the guy on the radio show. We would have this conversation all the time, and he would say, "Well, you can't call all of them racist, or as far as the Trump supporters." No, yes you can. No hedging.
Right.
No damn hedging, because these people, the same damn. I've been hearing how the hell black people are voting for Democrats because they're doing so bad. Well, let's flip that. I'm here in the South.
Mm-hmm.
Red everywhere. I'm talking about from dog catcher on up.
Right.
And how they're doing. How's Mississippi doing?
Mm-hmm.
How's the poor in Louisiana doing? How's the poor in Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas? How have they been doing under Republicans? We can't sit up and get these people. No, we excuse them. We give them the excuse that they've been left behind. Who the F has been leaving them behind? You're white in America. Don't give me that crap. We feel bad we've been left behind, so we're going to vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
Donald Trump. Give me a damn break. I have no sympathy or empathy for these people. They lay with these undercover racists for years, and now they got them a full-blown racist, and they're all out for him. They always said, Republicans, their excuse for every damn time they lose a race, we didn't have a conservative enough guy in there. Well, damn it, you had Ted Cruz. There's no more conservative than that idiot right there. But what did you choose, white person, white blue-collar, hard-working person? What did you choose? You choose the damn racist Donald Trump. So I'm not giving these people how you can't give them an out. You're giving them an out.
I am.
By saying that these are the people that feel that they've been left behind. No. These people watched George W. Bush turn their 401ks to 201ks. These same people watched Ronald Reagan come in there and tell them all the good things that he was going to do for him and all the bad things that Jimmy Carter was going to do.
And gut unions.
They turn around and he closed up. He went and attacked unions.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they find this scum.
And they're mad at Obama about it.
And now they're mad at Obama.
Right.
How the hell are you mad at Obama when Bush and Reagan did you in? He destroyed unions in the Rust Belt. All these hard-working, blue-collar white people that everybody is just pandering over and bending over backwards for, and they try being black in America. I'm not hearing it.
Understood.
I'm really not, and we cannot give these people any. We can't sit up and say, "Well, they're hurting. That's why they're voting for Trump." No, they're racist. They're absolutely racist.
I hear you.
They know what happened to their jobs. They know who the president was when their unions were destroyed. They know what George did. They don't even mention. It's like George W. Bush didn't even exist. They know what happened under those 8 years. They know who turned.
And they're calling themselves independents and libertarians now because they're embarrassed by 2 rounds of voting.
I told my wife the other day, independents are just Republicans who are embarrassed.
That's right.
That they voted for George W. Bush twice.
That's right.
So for us and for anybody to ever say that these people are going towards this man just because they're angry and they feel left behind, not just no. Hell no. Hillary Clinton had it wrong. It's more than 50%. It's more like 90% that's voting for this man simply because he's xenophobic, racist, and homophobic, and therefore all that. And we need to cleanse these people out of our damn country.
All right. Appreciate it, call. I'm over the break. I wanted to give you more time to talk. Appreciate the call, and I absolutely hear you. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah. Right. No, I got this from Camden's elementary school, and it's just haunting me. It's funny because I feel fine now. It's just it's just dragging on. There's nothing, it's just got to clear and go. What is Aleppo? I was like, I think I might have been one of the first people to tune as he said it. Because I tweeted that, what is Aleppo? I'll take deer in the headlights moments for libertarian candidates for 200, Alex. I tweeted that really quick, just kind of offhanded, because I was like, whoa, that's kind of amazing. I was watching it when it happened. And, and then it became such a thing so quickly that it became such a big thing, by the way, that people almost forgot about Morning Joe's just kind of crappy diatribe towards Mika Brzezinski that was arguably as much news as what Gary Johnson said. It was just awful. Yeah, that's right, Billy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, effectively, Gary Johnson is, just kind of proved himself to be the libertarian Dan Quayle.
1 minute.
Cool. Sorry I went so long in that, but Carl was just filibustering, and I just wanted to let him at least get to a point where we could.
Yeah, yeah. He was upset.
Yeah, and I totally hear it. I get where she's coming from though, and I know exactly what she's trying to do. What she's trying to do is soften the blow for those. It's like that. He's softening his message to try and get some of those. Suburban whites to go, oh, he doesn't really mean all this crap he says. And she's trying to give them a way to go back and go, no, actually, he is a racist jerk. And I feel more comfortable voting for the Democrat this time. And that's happening increasingly, so it's not surprising.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. I had to let Carl filibuster there for a little bit because he had a lot to say, and even though we were well into the break, I wanted to at least get to a nice jumping off point. I always appreciate the call from him. Let's grab another caller, Lady B. Who do we have?
We have Steve from the Gold Coast.
Oh, okay. Speaking of filibuster, hey, Steve.
Yes. Well, one filibuster following another.
Absolutely.
And I have all the respect in the world for Carl. I would tend to disagree to some degree. I think that there are people who are voting Republican, voting for Trump in this case, but the reasons vary. I mean, certainly there are those for whom xenophobia and racism is appealing, but there are others who are misguided in their belief that somehow Republican policies are going to favor them in the long run. And that's the bill of goods that's been sold to many people who vote Republican, who have absolutely no economic basis for which to do so. I mean, it's understandable. If you made $1 million last year, it's absolutely understandable as to why you might vote Republican from an economic standpoint. If you made $35,000 last year, why in God's name you're voting Republican is beyond me.
Right.
But there are people who are convinced that the Republican model is going to make them a millionaire in the next 10 years, or is going to make their children millionaires.
Or if they win the lottery, magically they will somehow get a, they won't ever have to pay taxes on it. There is so many in the South, especially as you travel around. There's so many what I would call Lotto voters in the GOP. That people who really think that I'm going to win the lottery and then the government's going to take half of it, and that's wrong. And that's really. They operate from that. Either they're going to get rich from real estate and they think they're going to lose half of their money to the government because of how real estate is, which they don't understand at all, which is why they don't understand corporate marginal rate. They don't understand any of that stuff. Or they think they're going to win the lottery and therefore the government's going to take half their money and they're already mad about it even though they've never won and they're not going to.
Oh, yes. I mean, you'll find, the parroting of Republican talking points. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world, 35%. Okay, what's the effective tax rate on corporations in this country? About 17, 18%.
Oh, so more like 12. If you know how to actually do it, it's like 12, which is why Romney and Trump are very reticent to give out their taxes or to express those things, because people will find out they pay a 12% effective tax rate, which is lower than capital gains. That is, it is literally lower than, than the investment class. And that's the low end. When you think about paying 15% on investment earnings, people think of that as kind of high because you're gambling on stuff or whatever. Well, they don't even pay that most of the time.
Right. So you've got the people who are again racist. And again, I share that belief with Carl, and that, yes, there is that cohort within the Republican Party. Again, others who have bought into the Republican line, and again, because of the way that our news is balkanized these days, they tune in to the Foxes of the world. They tune in to the Rush Limbaughs and Sean Hannity's of the world. And this is the only place they get their information. They don't look for other alternative sources. So therefore, this is their narrative, and that's why they're voting Republican. Others vote Republican because they were taught that, that you had to have party loyalty. I have always been a Republican, and I'm going to vote Republican again this time around. And frankly, they're not in the least bit, conversant with the issues. It's just that they're Republicans. So I don't believe that, that the majority of Republicans are out there simply voting based on race. There are some, not all. In that sense, I do disagree with Carl. And in terms of Donald Trump, I mean, this is a great week for people to sit back and ask themselves, Given the role of the presidency, and for people who don't know it, foreign policy is the realm of the president.
Mm-hmm.
That has been given within our scope of government to the president as the realm of government in which he has authority. If the Congress doesn't deal with foreign powers, it's the president that does. And in that sense, we've had a taste of what Donald Trump's views of the international community might look like. I mean, this idea, Vladimir Putin is a strong leader. He's a strong leader vis-a-vis what? His willingness to repress basic human rights as dictated by the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights.
It's because this appeals to those values voters that he spoke to this week, and the idea that Vladimir Putin puts down LGBT, pride movements. He criminalizes the act of actually advocating for LGBT rights. He criminalizes it. You go to jail for doing the kind of things that the Tony Perkins and the value voters of this country would like to see. They in their mind, that is codifying Christianity and making illegal any kind of homosexual behavior. That is one of the main reasons why they say strong leader, and it appeals to them.
Right, the whole idea that that a strong man is something that is very appealing in the third world, which is why we don't get very far when we try to institute democracy in other places. Well, it turns out that it's not just appealing in the third world; it's a very appealing prospect even here. And here you have voters who want some kind of a strong man. They see Donald Trump as that. And the question is, why, in God's name, in the 21st century, living in a Western democratic society, democratic constitutional republic, would anyone think that a strong man is a good idea? But yet, that is the case.
Oh, I appreciate the call. The only thing that keeps them from him from saying the exact same thing about Kim Jong-un is the haircut. That's it. Like if Kim Jong-un had a better haircut, Donald Trump would say the exact same things he's saying about Putin. And of course, if he had huge real estate dealings with North Korea, and if that country was helping him by hacking his opponent's political campaign, that would also, I think, put him under favor. That being said, let's grab another caller before we go to the break again.
We have Skip from Highland Park.
Right on. Hey, Skip, welcome.
Good morning. Big fan, Hale. I've called before.
Thanks.
I got to tell you, Franz Kafka is right. The famous quote is, "We live in a world of the absurd." This past week was so bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I have an idea for a new game show. It's called Who's a Patriot?
Right.
I think that Colin Kaepernick is right.
Mm-hmm.
He exposed, spotlighted a racist human being by the name of Francis Scott Key, who wrote a racist anthem that everybody seems to like, at least the first part, till I actually read the words. And then I heard the other patriot, Donald Trump, said that the generals don't know what they're doing, that he knows more about ISIS than they do, and then he extolled the virtues of Putin. Who's the patriot here?
Yeah.
Who's an American here? It's beyond bizarre.
Yeah, I think most people. It was interesting to see how directly a lot of the, at least on the fence pro-Trump people in the Republican Party, i.e., Paul Ryan and a couple of the other representatives who are kind of, they're softball supporting him. They're saying we support the nominee of the party and that but all of them came down very soundly anti-Putin. They were like, that's ridiculous. He's a dictator. He's he's not. We have allegiances in some circumstances with Russia, but they are by no means an ally. They are a rival on the world stage. It is dangerous to assert otherwise, and it was amazing how quickly even those people were like, "Yeah, that's my line. That's where I draw the line." And yet, what happened after that was he continued his support. It got more. He went on Larry King's show on RT. Which, by the way, if you'll recall, there was a big dust-up about 3.5 years ago because RT was literally taking orders on how to deal with certain issues. They were presenting themselves. Tom Hartman was on there for a while. He's on Free Speech TV now, but Tom Hartman's show used to be on RT. This was an act of, let's fund this, let's bring in some people, let's bring in people who are critical of the American system from within, give them a platform, and then start dictating essentially what they're saying. When that happened, a lot of the American the American presence on there started to leave, and a couple of their like Russian people who were working on the show left because they didn't want to take orders from the Kremlin on how to approach a story. They split. There was a big deal there, and
it sounds like the Russian
has been for a very there is no coordinative editorial situation going on there at all. Shows are at odds with each other. Hannity's basically running his show like he runs his radio show every day. O'Reilly's doing the same thing and talking about retirement. Most of the women there who have any kind of marker are looking for a foot out the door, and watch them show up on CNN and change their tune to a much more normalized view of the news than that Fox angle they've been selling, because they've been getting an editorial dictate from upstairs. And now that that's gone, that changes the perspective of those particular people. And you watch, look, I mean, Shep Smith has always bucked the trend, but Megyn Kelly has had her moments of reasonability as well, and they're growing as Ailes has left. It's a really curious thing to watch when people are no longer, A, they don't have job security by acting that way, or B, it's not enforced, or they'll lose their job, which is the two forms of control over journalism and that Ailes has created. In Hannity's form is you get a job here because you and I are already on the same page. And with Megyn Kelly and others, it's you get on the same page or you lose your job. That's the Ailes system. It's also how he's co-running the Trump campaign. We'll be back with more of your calls after this. Appreciate the call, Skip. 773-763-9278. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, Ed Schultz got, like the interview I saw with him last night was just weird. Like it was straight up. It's almost like that, that warning of the thin line between, socialism and communism, and that everybody kind of clamors about. I don't find true, except in a couple of people. And there's this weird, like, workers of the world unite, that the enemy of, of my friend is my enemy. That rubber stamps this kind of grotesque cohabitation going on RT with Ed. I was really shocked at the interview where he joined, I think, Larry King on there. It even shocked Larry King. Larry King was like, "Is this the Ed Schultz I once knew?" It was really bizarre. I just dial it down. Oh, he's still on RT at night, Fancy Free? I know he, Again, RT is basically, hiring based on your criticism of America, not of actions, but of essence, of concept, specifically capitalism as a system, but also of its coordination, in terms of, free speech, or,
30 seconds.
The Bill of Rights, that there's something kind of intrinsically wrong or needs to be curtailed about it. And that's where, the overlap of authoritarian right and authoritarian left shows up. That was actually the point. They wanted RT people to think it was Reuters television. Yeah.
Tom Hartman's still on RT.
Yeah, I know. People in the chat are, yeah.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. In the next hour, we're going to be talking about the Clinton Foundation in comparison to the Donald J. Trump Foundation and the ideas of pay for play, the stories regarding both, and sniffing around this mission-based journalism around the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton herself, while completely ignoring all the obvious hammer and nail coordination of the Donald J. Trump Foundation and his political wants and needs. Let's grab another call, Lady B. Who do we have?
We have Mark from McHenry.
Cool. Hey, Mark. Welcome.
Hi, Hal. How you doing?
I'm good. Go ahead.
You know, I really liked what Carl and Steve had to say. I especially what Carl's passion about what I believe is the real situation. And I have to tell you, you know, the thing that has upset me the most about this election, and just depressed me and dispirited me and really made me question what kind of a country I thought I was living in, is the fact that somebody who lies as blatantly and as openly as he does, who has such shoddy and unethical business practices, who is so racist and just in every way is such a rotten human being, is still polling at over 40%. Now, you gave me a little hope earlier saying that the way the pollsters are doing it now is that they're picking a larger. You know, they're not really. It's not scientific polling.
No.
If you're polling, you know, more
it's
of
not
one
general
group and
public,
less than
right.
another group, exactly. You're not really getting a clear picture. But I have to tell you that the fact that an individual who frankly, I call him the traitor now, because I think that frankly, I see him as a Manchurian candidate, whether by design or just his
a useful idiot.
But,
that's what I mean. In spy terms, they used to refer to people like him as a useful idiot, people who are easily played and flipped.
That's what Lenin would have referred to him.
That's right.
And you know, and I know that you know your basket of deplorables or whatever the term was that you had has always been out there. You know, that I can live with, but the fact that he is polling at such a level among even people who should be smarter than that, should see an individual like this and the way he behaves, the things he says, I mean, hell, he even stiffed the Liberty Girls or whatever, the little Hitler Youth kids who were dancing at one of his meetings, and they welched on their expenses and everything else. I mean, how can anybody with any moral center and any kind of intellect vote for this guy? Why is he polling at the level he's at?
Well,
and I got to tell you,
how can you trick yourself into thinking that he has any business sense if this is how he conducts his campaign? Because even if you totally agree with him, if he's stiffing those little girls, that's just dumb, cheap business practice. That doesn't even serve you. He doesn't even do selfish right.
No, he does not. But I'll tell you, it has affected my perception and my view of my country. I mean, you know, even if he loses, the fact that he is polling the way he's been polling, and the fact that so many people that should know better seem to be supporting him, and of course the Republicans, they have no moral center at all. I mean, the Ryans and the McConnells, the rest of them, you know, they come out against what he said, but I'm going to vote for him anyway. And Pence, I mean, there's a word for Pence that I would use that you would immediately cut me off, so I'm not going to use it.
Understood.
But, you know, it has fundamentally, I have to tell you, it has affected my perception and my level of respect and my feeling about the country that I live in.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. I would not personally, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but I would not let the rise of this particular group dictate my view of all Americans any more than I did when the PMRC and the moral majority were affecting things. When Pat Robertson actually had a legit run for the president, he was part of an upflow crowd and had an artificial buoyancy because of a particular group of human beings. They still exist. The Voting Rights Act was in the early 60s. A lot of those people are still in office. They're, understand we are transitioning through a phase. The reality of both bills that have been passed, budgetary changes in how we operate are moving away from military towards, social support and education. They have been for years. The violent crime statistics in this country are going down. Jobs are going up. Literally, when Trump goes on and on about we don't have a country anymore, the country's falling apart, this is terrible, the whole thing's every black person in the country lives in a ghetto and stuff, just means that it's as if he just gets his entire vision of what the United States is from an old subscription to HBO in 1993. Like he has this such a narrow 80s American psycho view of what America is like, because he lives in such an insulated. That's why you keep hearing him talk about when he's, I've met such great people as I've gone across this country. Because he doesn't normally live that way. He lives an ivory tower existence. They brush people aside when he comes to visit his own casinos and hotels if they're not the kind of people he wants to see. And now that he's running for president, they can't do that because, they do in certain cases. They took one of his own he had a supporter who was of color and that person was removed because nobody there believed that person could be supporting him. So he was walked out of the place, totally this 17-year-old who was all excited to be voting on. He was going to turn 18 and vote for Donald Trump. He was a big supporter, and they made him leave because he was not white, and therefore they thought he was there to disrupt. This is the amazing thing to me is the vast majority of the Trump supporters who talk about, elites and the New York values and the idea that somehow, the Donald, they would, ivory towers, going to, the Harvards and Yales, these kind of schools somehow make them less American. This was the entire sales pitch around what it meant to be, you weren't the right kind of American. This was the entire Republican system for a long time. This is, excuse me, this is how they ran. There's two Americans, the Huckabee, Bubba America idea. And here they are running this New York real estate developer who went to a upper class school, sits in gold chairs. They want royalty back because they're tired of living in a democracy. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide and WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Excuse me. Son of a... Apologize, guys, for coughing, but it's just... And, let's see. Who's in here? Let's see. It is freezing in this room, by the way. All right, we're gonna. Hi, chat room. Mercy, man. Let's see, did it come through? Yeah, okay. That's what, yeah, it's cold in here. Like it's crazy. Like I'm in Austin, Texas, and this is what happens when you go to like hot cities and hot environments, is that they overcompensate by making the interior of every building for you have to cut off a toe if you want to see a movie. I have herbal tea. It's just herbal iced tea because there's no hot water down here.
20 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Last Man on Earth, based on I Am Legend, which is in many ways sort of based on white supremacist guilt, because the character in it looks a lot like.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
Well, I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Fuss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
So, welcome back to the show. So, there's been a lot of hay made back and forth about the Clinton Foundation and whether Hillary needs to distance herself or stop taking the Clinton Foundation itself needs to stop taking foreign donations after the election. If there's any, any sense of impropriety, that in many ways the just looking like there might be quid pro quo going on is enough to call for the halt of any kind of coordination or outreach. Now let's start on the premise that after a president leaves office, what are they to do with their time and the prestige of being a former president of the greatest democracy in the world? Are they to just retire to the bath and paint their feet? Are they to build houses like Jimmy Carter, or are they to form a foundation to continue working towards, helping move the issues they championed in their time in office over the rest of their lives? Well, in the abstract, apparently, according to all news journalists, that if at any time you or any member of your family might return to public service, let's remember what the job is. Public service. You should the last thing you should do is have a charitable foundation, because it just looks too sketchy. So AP runs this story, which is where there's smoke, there's fire, and that is the entirety of their evidentiary language in their article. They find that out of 1,700 meetings that Hillary Clinton had, approximately, that 148 were with non-governmental entities that didn't have direct business or were not assigned by the State Department. And of those 148 were either direct meetings, dinners, or email responses about the potential for possible dinners or meetings. Over half of those, 85 of the 148-ish, were donors to the Clinton Foundation. So the other half, which the other about 60 some odd, were not donors to the Clinton Foundation. The number of people in both of those groups getting their needs met was near equal. Whether you were a donor or not, getting the meeting and then actually having your request met were basically on par. So that if you didn't donate to the Clinton Foundation, you had just as much of a chance of actually getting your request serviced and met by the State Department or by Hillary Clinton as you did if you did donate. Still, the AP runs this, there's too much of a possibility that maybe could be possible. We have no evidence, but it looks a little bit, they're bad optics. And bad optics are as much as the AP needed to prove this pay-for-play quid pro quo idea. And even though, again, zero evidence. But that was not the worst of it. The worst was to draw attention to that story. The AP puts out a tweet that says half of the people that Hillary Clinton met with while she was at State, more than half, were Clinton donors. That's obviously false. In no way did 850 Clinton Foundation donors meet with Hillary Clinton while she was at State. What they meant was, of the private meetings that she had, and emails, phone calls, dinners, what have you, 85 out of about 148 of them were donors to the Clinton Foundation. Not even really ranking in terms of percentage with the 1,700 meetings that she had while she was at State. The Clinton Foundation itself is both an anti-AIDS and anti-malaria focused foundation, which also does coordination between NGOs and governmental and former governmental officials in countries that need it the most. which means you are going to be using the power of a former presidency to crowbar much-needed aid into places. If you are going to say that the standard of dealing with and being in sketchy places is indicative of some sort of awfulness on part of the Clinton Foundation, then you must indeed think that Doctors Without Borders is a spy operation operating for the Chinese. This is what it takes in many cases to help, heal, and support people who are in the most dangerous and disease-ridden, poverty-stricken, ailed parts of the world. The Clinton Foundation has done a lot of work around that. A lot of the people who donate large sums of money, I have no doubt some of them gave money thinking it would get them influence. There's no indication at all that it did, based solely on that. Some people who gave actually had legitimate needs met by help from the State Department, requested it and got it because it was actually in the interest of the United States as well. That doesn't mean pay for play or quid pro quo. That means someone reached out to the State Department with a legitimate issue about a legitimate concern about their relationship with our country and their country, or a circumstance going on in their country, and it merited working its way up the chain. But the idea that that the whiff of it is enough for the dismantling, that this is the prevailing idea. It's like the Comey email statement about it is possible that her private server was hacked. No evidence of that. There's evidence the State Department was hacked. There's evidence that the White House has been hacked. There's evidence that almost every corner of that. There's evidence that the DNC, for example, was hacked. There's no evidence that her private server was hacked, and yet it is stated as fact in almost every news story about this that because it is possible that it in fact did happen. That's not journalism. That's not news. It's certainly not, doesn't merit any criminal standards, doesn't meet any legal standards. If it does, we're all in deep trouble. But this ongoing idea, if you want to sell this as a premise, that even the look of impropriety is enough where Hillary Clinton has to, once she takes office, distance herself, that her own daughter and her husband must stop working for a foundation that works to help people with AIDS and malaria and bring coordinated efforts between NGOs and governmental authorities in war-torn regions in the world, that they literally must, if you want to believe this, if you insist that this is how she must operate, and you don't at the same time go, Donald Trump must disclose all of his financial dealings with Russia, and Donald Trump's quid pro quo and pay for play, what looked like it went on between Pam Bondi and Donald Trump, means that there must be an investigation into Trump University by the current AG of Florida. If you are not insisting in the same breath that people that Hillary Clinton must distance herself from the Clinton Foundation because of the very sense of impropriety, the possibility, it must have gone on. Why? Because I don't trust Hillary Clinton. That's why. That's reason enough. And effectively allowing yourself to be, it is as if parts of the American public are Ken starring themselves about the Clintons. Expect something to be there. If you don't find it, keep looking until you find anything. And that thing, if you find it, even though it is wholly unrelated to the issue you were looking for, has nothing to do with actual governance, doesn't actually affect policy, doesn't actually affect any American citizen's rights or abilities to operate freely as a citizen of a democracy, even though it doesn't affect any of those things, it is taken, read Lewinsky, as being indicative of, I was right. I was right to look in the first place. I was right to assume the Clintons are dirty because as I kept looking downstream, I found something human about them. Donald Trump, through the Donald J. Trump Foundation, gave money to Pam Bondi's re-election campaign and then gave her a premium price, charged her campaign about $5,000 to use one of his resorts for a fundraiser that he charged his own campaign, $114,000 to use. He gave it to Pam Bondi for $5,000. He gave her $25,000 through his Donald J. Trump Foundation. It's not the Trump Foundation, so his kids can get a little credit. No, it's the Donald J. Trump Foundation. Clinton Foundation, by the way, is not the William Jefferson Clinton Foundation. It's the Clinton Foundation. Think about that for a second. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. Okay, Michael. Ew. Lady B, do we have calls? Do we have? I just want to make sure.
Yes, we do. We still have 7 callers.
Wow. All right.
You need honey tea or a cinnamon tea.
I need a new lung coating is what I need to do. I need to just hack up whatever it is. It's this little tickle in the center of my chest. It's just a little thing, and it's a dry cough. It's not very expressive, so it's just a little infection tickle. It's just gonna be there until it goes away. And
Desde canela, tómatelo.
What'd you call me? You do, and you'll clean it up.
I said the cinnamon tea that will help you.
All right, okay, I'll believe you. I will give it a try right after. Yeah.
$30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Now back to the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Let's get back to our callers. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Paul from Seattle.
Excellent. Hey, Paul, welcome.
Wait a minute.
Oh, do we have him? Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Is he there?
There we are.
Hey. How are you? Go ahead.
Good. Yeah, I just want to touch on quickly the corporate income tax rate that you were talking about with Steve. Now, I just looked this up because I heard Donald Trump being interviewed by Lars Larson this week, and he said, we got to get this corporate income tax. It's 35% is too much. It's got to be 15%. And I looked it up. In the last 5 years, the average corporate income tax rate has been the lowest since before World War I. It bottomed out in 2011 at 12.1%.
Right.
So remember, since before the 16th Amendment was only passed in 1913, World War I was 1914. So essentially, the lowest sense income tax was invented, so to speak. And when Steve says, okay, yeah, you may pay 17, 18%. Well, if the average is 12.1, that means some corporations paid 6 or 7%.
That's right.
Or maybe less.
Oh yeah, and don't forget all the incentives that are given to businesses to buy and build here in the United States. That they incorporate lots of stuff in. There's all that stuff about private planes for executives for a little while that got a dust up. Like, how dare they? That's now normal. That's back to normal. That went away for about 2 years. Everybody made a noise about it. It was still in the tax code. It never got removed. It's still there. And to some degree, if those planes are built in the United States, I kind of don't care. But the idea is that they're writing that off as well. There's almost next to nothing that they do there. And one of the reasons why the middle class, in some ways, in terms of visibility, is disappearing on paper is because the upper parts of the middle class have learned the power of corporatizing. That a lot of them who are in real estate and in other areas are putting their, all their private holdings in corporate holdings. So on paper, they're making, $80,000 a year, what have you. They're well under what would be expected to. I mean, they're doing well by, lower class standards, as it were. They're the top echelon, but their holdings, if you include what they corporate own, are up in the $250,000 range. They're just not showing it. They're doing the exact same thing giant corporations are doing, looking cash poor on paper, but having 3 houses that are just owned by a family-owned real estate trust or whatever. I mean, I'm an actor. I know people who do this. It's how you do it. Because especially if you're in an industry where you don't have a job that runs for years, you have feast and famine. And so you mitigate that by doing it over time. And corporatizing is one of the ways they're doing it. Well, that's exactly what a lot of the upper middle class are doing. And so that it's not so much that they're disappearing, is that they're switching it over from how it looks on paper. It's the exact same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. And that's why it's important that Donald Trump show his tax returns to see if he even paid the 12.1%. And, of course, the reason he's being audited is because he obviously writes off there's a lot of loophole writing, and the IRS has to say, well, you made a lot of money, but you got an awful lot of deductions that we need to check out. That's what you call an audit. So
you're also there's also a very strong possibility that he doesn't make nearly as much as he says he does, that he's actually receiving stuff in gifts from other people, read Russia or whomever, that he lives within his lifestyle. They're looking at his money on paper, and they're looking at his plane, and they're going, wait a second, where's the cash coming from to fund this? It's not showing up on the books anywhere. And that's why they keep auditing him.
As though he seems Teflon, as he says he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and still get the support. He knows that what's in his tax return would be damaging to him. At least he knows that much.
Absolutely, especially to his brand.
Yeah. So the thing is, this week I think that I guess my trust would be this.
Yeah.
There's a significant segment of the voting populace that is too stupid to govern themselves, and the media has tapped in. Media and Donald Trump have tapped into that. Mm-hmm. And this week. And I used to write the media off as, the liberal media, the conservative media, how much influence it has. People still have brains. But this week, and I'm going to point to the question to Gary Johnson, the media has gotten directly involved in trying to manipulate this campaign. Mm-hmm. And the question to Gary Johnson about Aleppo was designed to quell or staunch the split-off vote of Republicans to the Libertarian Party by making Gary Johnson look foolish because he doesn't know where Aleppo. I guarantee you, in the pre-forum, rehearsal or debriefing at NBC, that Matt Lauer said, "And what is Aleppo?" Mm-hmm. And the production staff said, "Aleppo is a place in Syria." You have to remember, when you ask a question like that, you're supposed to be asking it so that the audience understands, and nobody knows Aleppo. Mm-hmm. So it was directed so that Gary Johnson didn't know Aleppo, and I'll tell you what, Donald Trump doesn't know where Aleppo is, but Hillary Clinton sure does.
Right.
So they wouldn't ask that question to Hillary Clinton, and they wouldn't ask it to Donald Trump because he wouldn't know. They wouldn't ask it to her because she would know.
Well, I think what they were trying to do, I do think there was a jab at him. I don't think I think they were even shocked at how well it worked, if that was indeed a trap. But I will, because he walked into a rake, unlike almost anything I've seen since Dan Quayle. The issue is what they're really asking him when they said, "What would you do about Aleppo?" Because it is the center of the refugee crisis. It is where that picture of that little boy recently made the news. It ebbs and flows from it. But the idea is that libertarian candidates are isolationist and don't really know or care much about foreign policy. And what really came out from his answer, more disturbing than what is Aleppo, and the idea that he thought it was some sort of acronym and that was his excuse later, was that his answer to what to do about it was exactly the same as Donald Trump's. Glad hand with the Russians, and make nice with them. He said make nice with them and work together. Well, first of all, that's what we're already doing. We've been doing that for a long time. It's a difficult process. You don't just automatically go, well, it's because of who's in charge. If I was in charge, they would already be doing it. Why? Because you would give them more of what they want in the negotiation to guarantee yourself that sort of coordination? Absolutely not. Then, I mean, it's an absurd assertion. But what ultimately Gary Johnson came to was there is zero difference in foreign policy between him and Donald Trump other than maybe the build the wall stuff. But the reality is libertarianism is not a governing philosophy. It is a personal philosophy. It is my influence religiously, intellectually should end at, outside my shouting circumference and at the end of my nose physically. And,
almost by definition, of course.
Right.
And then the other thing that Trump has tapped into is this. That the Vladimir Putin is kind of this segment of America likes a dictator. They just want one that's on our side, and so they respect Vladimir Putin because he's tough. They wish we had one of those, and it's almost the same mentality of, you see, if we're not at war somewhere, then we're weak. We need to be in a conflict. We need to be in a fight. Just to prove that we're strong, whether or not we're getting our asses kicked as we did in Iraq and in Vietnam, at least we need to prove that we're fighting. And it's the same mentality that Donald Trump has about, well, if we have these bombs, why aren't we dropping them?
Right.
There's a certain segment of, I think, the Trump mentality, the Trump supporter mentality has that mentality that if we have weapons, why the hell aren't we using them? We should be, because if we're not, then we're decommissioning them and we're weak. If we're not fighting, we're weak. That's the mentality that he's tapped into. I think there's a significant segment of the voting populace that feels that way.
I think you're absolutely right. I agree. The big question ultimately becomes is what kind of fighting are we talking about? Because strategically, the Obama administration and the Clinton State Department engaged in a lot of covert upending of ISIS, for example. A lot of stuff that didn't gain a lot of, big splashy news stories the way carpet bombing would, but was way more effective and then also didn't serve as direct line propaganda for ISIS itself to attack the United States. It's hard. They have to work to make the connection, but they don't have to work to feel the damage. And the United States has since, probably about 2009, has taken that as point of strategy, and ultimately it was very much how bin Laden was killed. That's the strategy that the Obama administration has been operating from in many ways. And other countries, France and Germany specifically, have taken more of the mantle and actually received more of the blowback than we have because of that very situation. So it's not so much about whether you're fighting or not, but if the fighting looks macho to the viewer from the outside. Appreciate the call. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio. More of your calls after this. Yeah, I love that they're literally bringing Paul Wolfowitz out of the woodwork. Essentially, yeah, I do get focused on reading. I just lose myself. And it's funny because I don't even hear when people are talking to me sometimes when I'm reading. I literally can't hear a word people are saying. Driftglass, when people are, Wolfowitz has been floated again because he's actually coming out against Trump because he's too extreme for friggin' Paul Wolfowitz. And so basically they're coming out and going, Paul Wolfowitz is pro-Hillary, and therefore, but it's like, that's not even close to the truth. The truth is that somebody like Paul Wolfowitz wants Hillary to win because she's not going to destroy the world. She's going to keep it chugging right along, moving in the direction it's been moving, trying to improve on a bunch of different fronts until he and his party can get their act together
20 seconds.
to turn it into an imperialist structure again. That's why Paul Wolfowitz is pro-Hillary. It's because she won't wreck it before he has a chance to turn it into a third world eating machine again.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Let's keep taking calls, Lady B. Who do we have?
We have Matt from Chicago.
Cool. Hey, Matt. Welcome.
Matt?
Do we have him? Matt, hello?
You still there? I guess we lost him.
Oh, poor Matt. Okay. Who else do we have?
We have Karen.
Cool. Hey, Karen. Welcome.
Hi, Hal.
Hi.
Always a pleasure to speak with you. I want to say, first off, thank you for defending the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Hillary Clinton for a moment. I want to say some positive things about her. Two things that I don't think her detractors are taking into consideration at all, but voters notice it. She is a world's better candidate this time around than she was in 2008. I think her campaign, from the ads to everything else, is hitting a lot of the right notes. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you agree. Great minds think alike. I also think something that her detractors in the blowhard cable news media, and we all know what they're doing, that's been discussed.
Yeah.
No point in rehashing it. They don't realize this about her. She has been knocked down so many times in public life.
Yep.
Humiliated, candidly, on a level, and we don't need to rehash that would have had anyone else screaming and hiding under a rock. And yet she manages every time to get back up and emerge even stronger more often than not. Now, if that's not the American spirit, I don't know what is. And I will acknowledge she has her flaws. Of course, name me one person who's running for president who doesn't, and I'll laugh you out of a room.
I completely agree. The fascinating part of the inherent kind of soft sexism that floats around Hillary Clinton's entire candidacy, and quite frankly, her run for Senate, her being in the State Department, this idea that somehow she's cold and distant and a little harder than she should be and not as ingratiating. Understand, this is what a vanguard woman looks like in modern society. This is what it takes.
You're damn right.
Men can be affable. It is easy, by the way, for somebody like Bernie Sanders to be kind of a nice grandpa about stuff because there's enough precedence around him. There's enough men to choose from to be able to vary and make your decision on which one is in a leadership position, how they got there, that there's multitude of ways to get into a leadership position if you're a woman. In the modern Democratic and Republican parties and the arc of power structure in the United States over the last 45 years, as women have made gains, the women who've made their way up the ladder have had to straddle this, this kind of shoulder pads, competing with, broad-shouldered men idea for the better part of 4 decades. And that in certain circumstances, the way you show strength is through parroting the sort of most macho aspects of male behavior, or the most rigid aspects of male behavior, because that's the power structure you're operating within. That's the social structure. That's what everybody is used to. It's almost like the soft sexism of low expectations is the idea. And that I got news for you. There's a reason why Elizabeth Warren can be sort of the first of the new wave of women coming up through this that is kind of personable and strong at the same time. And it's because people like Hillary Clinton, who are a decade and a half older than her, took all the bullets. They took all the shots coming up the chain. They had to be harder because they were the cutting edge of the bow of the ship. That's what it takes. And until people sort of recognize that, they're going to operate looking at her through the lens of current circumstances and not through the arena she came up through. And it's unfair to her. It's unfair to women of her age. It's unfair to women who've achieved positions of authority through that minefield. It is very different for women currently, as much as people may not think so. It is certainly different for women currently than it was for women even 20 years ago. And not recognizing that is one of the faults of the modern feminist movement, and also the modern liberals and progressives, not recognizing how much harder it was, how much progress we have actually made, taking to some degree a victory lap for the victories that have been made, owning those, so that you can also respect how difficult it was for the people before you. She deserves more respect for that. I'm sorry. I don't drink beer. I don't drink at all. So I don't need to be able to have a beer with Hillary Clinton to trust her with, the judgment and confidence of a decent public servant who's made a decision to make public service her life's work. I just don't have this Alex Jones panic about her, and I'm not going to be fed that bill of goods again and again and again with this where there's smoke, there's fire nonsense around the Clintons that always, when they get down to it, they look for all the dead bodies they want to, and what they find out was, at the most, an affair that was nobody's business to start with. It's pathetic. And this idea that somehow, because the Clinton Foundation has the name Clinton attached to it, and this preconceived notion that they are somehow dirty because they managed to fight off the Reagan-Bush machine, quite frankly, and were hounded by Ken Starr for half a decade, that somehow I'm supposed to take that as indicative that just because the name is on the foundation, automatically that makes the Clinton Foundation suspect. Wrong. It takes journalistic effort and investigation. If they find something that's a direct, pay-for-play or quid pro quo, that by the way, that somehow is obviously imbalanced to people who didn't get favors, who also gave money on the same level, which is exactly what they found. There isn't any. There's no there. But keep looking, because it's the Clintons, it must be something, while totally ignoring Trump's direct payment to Pam Bondi, the elimination of any kind of investigation into Trump University, no follow-up, and then a basic freebie for her re-election campaign to the tune of $5,000, where he charged his own campaign $114,000. So one of two things has happened. Either he gave away this place to her, basically just charging her for snacks and supplies and vacuuming the carpet after everybody left and giving it to her for free, or he's fleecing his own donors now. Either the price of that place is $5,000 or it's $114,000. If it's $5,000, he's ripping off his own donors. If it's $114,000, he gave her $110,000 to look the other way. Let's grab another call before we get to the break. Who do we have, Lady B?
We can go with a Mike from the north side. Hi, Mike.
Mike, are you there?
Hello, Mike.
Do we have Mike? Mike, hello. Going once, going twice? Nope. All right. Do we have another one?
Yes, we have Chuck.
Chuck, excellent. Hey, Chuck, welcome.
Hey, Hal. Thanks for getting me on again, regular listener, and
Indeed.
I always appreciate the quality of your show. I'd like to talk about how Hillary needs to double down now that this 50% of Trump supporters comment is out of the bag.
Yep.
I think right now, I'm not sure exactly how you calculate the polls, but I do know that she does need to expand her support.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that by doubling down on this comment and following and taking the narrative away from the media, who's always going to play this false equivalences game,
yep.
She could expand her support to two groups, the millennials and to the other 50% who are exculpated from being the deplorables in her comments about the Trump supporters. She needs to come out and say, I don't want that vote of that 50% or whatever it is, because they are bigots. They're opponents to the same civil liberties that millennials very much support and were motivated by in Bernie. And she needs to grab that. Trump will be horrid for civil liberties as well as for everything else. And that has not really been talked much about, but I think that she could use this to expand her appeal to them, which is lacking for all sorts of reasons, and not the least of which is how the media frames issues. I think a guy like you could really help in trying to reach out to the millennials. Of the no opinion voters, there's just too many that are what used to be Bernie supporters and millennials who are energized in 08 and 12, and we need their numbers. I'm concerned by how the race is narrowed, and I think the media wants a horse race, and they're framing it to get a horse race.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, no question. I mean, there's been this constant running thing, the idea that the AP and specifically the New York Times have been really working hard at digging at Clinton to somehow make this race a little tighter over time. Is sort of obvious to anybody who's been following, especially the email story, because they're just not giving up on it, even though they find nothing and their response from actual officials is nothing. Meanwhile, not looking at all, with any depth at all, into the Pam Bondi connection with Donald Trump and Trump University and all that. They're kind of shrugging that part of it off. That just shows that the concept of a liberal media is absurd. And that the idea that they somehow have it in the tank for Hillary is ridiculous. That being said, the amazing part of millennials, the idea of generations is a phony concept. And millennials are a really diverse group of people, if you want to, name them. Most of the generations we look at, from baby boomers to Gen X or whatever, is over a 20-year period, meaning that it is entirely conceivable that baby boomers have baby boomers as children, that millennials will have millennial children. Because if they have somebody born in 2000 has a baby when they're 19, both of them are millennials. And both of them will be referred to as millennials in viewpoint by pollsters and other people over time. When, quite frankly, they've grown up, they were literally the 19-year-old kid who has a child. That child will hate what their parents like. That's how it usually works. So even though they're both millennials, they have a totally different attitude towards stuff. That being said, that's true of the Gen Xers' children. That's true of baby boomers' children. And the reality is, most of the time, youth themselves, generation after generation after generation, are very driven about social and political issues, but don't vote for two reasons. One, it's complicated, and two, they're away from home. You'll see Republicans trying to keep college students from voting in the district that they're going to school in, because that's where they will be at the time of voting. And that getting an absentee ballot or voting out of state, if your family's not the most politically astute family in the world, you won't prep for that as you go off for college. You have a lot to think about, and by the time you get around to doing it, you don't have a driver's license in your home state anymore. You've been 90 days inside wherever you're going to college a lot of times, and you think somehow that it's more complicated than it is. That is those two elements drop the voting expression of a group of young people in a certain age range by a measurable amount every time that often gets attributable to laziness or disenfranchisement or lack of interest or whatever. That needs to stop. There needs to be a federal law passed about voting and voting rights, at least when it pertains to federal offices. You're voting for president, your senator, your congressperson. Anything that is a federal office should have a federal standard for voting. If states want to screw with their voters about who's mayor, knock yourself out. Throw a monkey wrench into your voting system if it's your state senate. That's your problem. But if it's a federal office, it affects all of us. It needs to have a standardized measure. And that in and of itself would fix about 12% of the lacking vote of millennials or any whatever the next round of 18 to 22-year-olds that don't vote is. We'll be back with more of your calls, 773-763-9278.
We have one more caller, Nancy from Oakland.
Excellent. Okay, we'll get her, and then we'll do the happy ending.
One minute.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
Welcome back to the show. We have one more caller, and then we'll do the happy ending. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Nancy from Oakland. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hey, how's it going, Hal?
Good. Go ahead.
Oh, gosh, I have so much to say and no time to say.
No, it's okay. You
First
got time.
of all,
You're okay. Go ahead.
All right, and I hope you don't look at this as kissing up, but if I ever win the lottery, I am going to request you, John Fugelsang, John Nichols, and Tom Hartman. I'm going to ask you if I can donate to a charity and have a lunch with you.
Oh yeah, I'm for it. We would do that anyways, even with whatever money you have on hand. I think we're all we all lean that way. It's not a problem. But I appreciate the thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
I love that you I don't care, whether I agree or disagree with you. You always give me a different way to look at things, and I always think to myself, you're a deep thinker. That's all I have to say. I don't know how else to explain it, but you always have a different angle on things.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the reason the Democrats always end up where they end up is because they don't know how to fight. I mean, I am so frustrated and fed up with, look at all that the cons are doing, and they never, all the cons do is repeat, because I'm sorry, but people are ignorant to the facts in a lot of ways in this country, and they just keep hearing the same BS. And of course, like, was it Karl Marx who said, if you keep repeating a big enough lie, they'll believe it?
Yeah, I think it was Goebbels or any number of dictators, propaganda guys. I think that's been a running thing. It's probably in The Art of War someplace. It's been, so used and played. But yeah, absolutely.
But why aren't they talking about the fact that, well, how come Trump isn't getting prosecuted until after the election? And why is he not, why aren't they pushing about his donations to that woman? I can't think of her name.
Pam Bondi. Yeah.
All the other stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And he won't release his taxes, and he lies every time he opens his mouth. Do they come back with anything and say, hey, you know what, this just isn't true? And what's wrong with using the word lie when you are a liar?
Well, he uses it all the time. He uses it constantly, about Hillary Clinton. One of his surrogates was on Joy Reid's show this morning, and I love Joy Reid, by the way. I've been a big fan of hers. And I'm so glad she has her own show. And in many ways, she was not having it this morning when the Trump surrogate was selling this quid pro quo pay for play idea, using these phrases as if because they fit on a bumper sticker, they are still true. They're not. There is no evidence to prove this. It is complete. It is a sales pitch. It is not based on reality in any sense. And the reason why Donald Trump is throwing this around so much and why he uses the word liar and pay for play and all this stuff is because now that all this stuff about Pam Bondi has come out, they're going to start looking into other areas where he's done this before, and he bragged about it during the primaries. The entire time the primaries were going on. That's right.
Why don't they talk about, he's saying about these wars and Hillary's this and Obama's that and all this. How come no one brings up the fact that W lied us into this war? The entire administration are a bunch of war criminals. And why do they never say this is a Republican war we're fighting?
Oh yeah, well all the libertarians and independents that used to be Republicans are all simply using those monikers largely to hide from their Bush votes. Driftglass and others have talked about this in our chat room, and this is a constant refrain that we deal with. But the truth is, a lot of them are just embarrassed by the fact that they bought the Bush line, hook, line, and sinker. They are completely, complicit in their support of the Republicans and the neocon machine that drove us into Iraq and Afghanistan in the first place. And now they want to be angry at Obama because of the budget bump that happened because he took the off-the-books payments for Iraq and Afghanistan and put them on the books and said, look, if you're going to have these wars, you're going to pay for them out in the open, unlike with these ridiculous supplementals that somehow magically kept them off the books during the Bush years, and then pretend that somehow that the budgetary blow-up is Obama's fault when the deficit he's been running has been going down ever since he took office. It's absurd. It's intellectually incurious. It's a lie, and they know it. So what do? They call Hillary Clinton a liar and untrustworthy right out of the gate, so that if you call them liars or untrustworthy, it looks like you're being vengeful as opposed to honest. That's how that tactic works. And it is so effective when you have a false equivalency media like CNN likes to run. It's amazing to me that CNN, when they, if they have somebody who comes on and says somebody should build a Holocaust memorial, Instead of getting somebody who says, actually, I don't think there should be a Holocaust memorial. I think we should have, better teachings in schools. I think a memorial doesn't do enough. That the money would be better spent having it added to the curriculum so people know. No, that what they do is CNN brings on somebody who doesn't believe the Holocaust ever happened. That's their idea of equivalency. It's embarrassing, and it needs to stop. Real quick, today is National Suicide Prevention Day. And so it's an odd thing to add to our happy ending, but I just want to remind everybody that this is a serious issue, especially when you've got 20 vets a day committing suicide. You need to, and this awareness needs to grow, and people need to, when they're on the edge of this or they've been dealing with depression, need to know that they are loved and appreciated. This is one of the most effective ways as a non-professional that you can help is to don't be afraid to smile, reach out, help. Extend your love, and if you want to volunteer or give money to any of the the groups, obviously the Trevor Project I've been very close with over the years, does great work with the LGBT community, especially teens who are on the edge. Give to one of those groups if you can, and take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I'm Hal Sparks. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Thank you, Lady B. Next week, Johnny Million will be with us, and we'll be in our new digs in California, so hopefully sonically we will be super extra primo good next week. I'm very excited about it. Thank you guys so much, and I want to congratulate my dear friends John and Patrick, who I conducted their marriage a couple weeks ago. They're lovely people, and we just tweeted the picture of it because we were kind of keeping it close to the chest until after I'd done it. I officiated their wedding, and they were wonderful people. That's also part of the happy ending. They're great couple. Take care of yourself, folks, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you, Lady B. Disconnecting. See you next time. You're awesome. I got to pack up because I'm in a hotel room and they're going to be barging in here in a minute and taking over. Bye. Oops. There we go. And thank you. Yes, new studio with lots of bandwidth. That's right. The best thing about it is that I literally ordered the best internet I could possibly have so that we can really blow up our. I can go back to multiple cameras. I can have guests on. Johnny Million will be with us next week, but we're going to have a couple of regular. He can only be here every other week. So what we're going to do is in LA, I'm going to start bringing in a couple of old friends to rotate through the mix. I'll let it be a surprise as we launch it, but I'm very excited about it. And everybody who's been helping by donating to the Patreon and other things to help us build the studio. I have you guys to thank for the ability to do that. Really appreciate it more than you know. And we, it means a lot. It really does. So, and hopefully my cough will be cleared up a little bit more by then. So, anyways, you guys are great. Thank you again. I got to clear out of here before they stampede in and go, what's happening here? Take care, and I will see you guys next time. You guys are awesome. Bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe and send links and all that stuff. It always helps us out. And, of course, if you want to subscribe to the Patreon, it's patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all of our big donors, especially Julie. Thanks for being such a big booster. Love you for that.